Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Dais, a podcast about the stories taking place in and around El Paso County, Colorado. I'm your host, Scott Anderson, and today I am joined by two El Paso County employees, Luke Hauser and Ross Williams. How are the two of you doing today?
Good.
Doing real good. Thanks for having us.
No, good. Absolutely. Thank you for making the time to be here today. I really appreciate it. Before we get started with the conversation, though, I want to quickly add that if listeners are interested in more stories about people doing good in and around El Paso County, or hearing from county leadership about local government priorities and how they operate, you can find additional episodes of this podcast on your podcast platform of choice. To get started today, though, I was wondering if both of you could share some background about yourselves and how you came to be here at El Paso County. Luke, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks. Luke Hauser, I've been a community development analyst for El Paso County's Economic Development Department for just over 2 years now. Before that, I worked as a park ranger up at Denver County, was a park ranger for about 7 years. The main mission that I had when I moved to the state 11 years ago was to try to make the state a better place, moving from Michigan. And it's really been kind of my professional goal since I've moved out here ever since.
Very cool. And then Ross, how about you?
My name is Ross Williams. I am park planner with El Paso County Parks and Community Services. I have actually been at the county for 20 years. My first 10 years I served as a GIS specialist and cartographer. And these last 10, I have been with parks, and folks sometimes wonder, how did that transition happen? I grew up on the western slope of Colorado, spent a lot of time outside, cycling, hiking, camping, and eventually, after numerous side tracks, I went to the University of Colorado Springs. Got my degree in geography and environmental studies, and I always had that goal to go back into recreation, back into parks. Mm-hmm. And when that opportunity presented itself about a decade ago, I took it.
Great. Those are actually some really interesting backgrounds that both of you one of you came from parks and one of you is in parks now. So that's pretty cool. So if you guys could tell me a little bit about your current roles that you're in and how you serve residents here in El Paso County. Ross, let's start with you. How would you say you serve the residents here in the county?
As park planner, my duties, my tasks are to quite simply plan parks, trails, and open space. I am responsible for creating many of the master plans that we have here in the county, or assisting with them, but I also get the wonderful opportunity to design parks and trails. I really like doing trails, seeing a trail being created all the way from the computer until it's final, its final. What am I trying to say? The final product.
Yeah, until you're walking on it yourself.
I'm walking on it, exactly. And whether that trail be single track or concrete or one of our mini regional trails, it's seeing it completed and then seeing the public out using it and having just a fun time. That's where the job all comes together, is actually seeing our citizens and seeing our visitors out there really enjoying these spaces and occasionally even talking to them like, hey, how do you like this? I kind of helped design it, or I helped build it, and just see them say, this is wonderful. We always spend our time here. We always do this. That is what I like doing for the citizens, for sure.
Awesome. And then Luke, how about you?
I oversee the Community Development Block Grant, which is an entitlement that is federally funded from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. How I like to think that I help the community is I see inequities that are occurring around our community and try to address them from a nonprofit municipality microenterprise or from a faith-based organization perspective, and see how we can be hands-on in assisting those types of organizations to better the community and to also help bring the community together in these places of focus specific to municipalities. some of the focus of the community development block grant is really to assist people with public service, public facility, infrastructure improvements, as well as housing and economic development activities. And through these 5 different funding categories, we're really able to run the gamut in the county for where there are inequities for funding. And that's where I really come in for most of the year, I am reviewing applications that come in and working with what are called subrecipients of our grant to ensure that they have the means to function, or for whatever project that they might have, whether that's infrastructure or a public service project, that they have the funding to make that project viable and come to fruition within the county.
Very good. So speaking more about the community development block grant, that's a mouthful right there. I know I'm going to get it wrong at some point during this conversation.
Is so much easier.
Yes, CDBG. There you go. So can you talk to me a little bit more about how it benefits the community, and also those 5 different funding categories that you mentioned, what those are and how they're used? Yeah, and so El Paso County has been an entitlement community since 2009, and that was really when we reached or surpassed a population threshold that allowed us to receive this particular entitlement from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And really the whole concept behind the Community Development Block Grant, also known as CDBG, is the development portion of it. We really want to do all of our best to help develop either municipalities, nonprofits, micro enterprises, which are 3 or fewer employees, faith-based organizations that have an inclusivity focused, as well as institutions of higher learning. When there is a deficiency within funding to help fund different projects that either or any of these 5 different categories of funding, any of these 5 different organizations have, then we step up at El Paso County through the use of the CDBG in order to provide untethered funds to these organizations to make sure that these programs come to fruition. We serve the community in one of 3 ways through what are our national objectives. And the national objectives for the CDBG program are to serve persons of low to moderate income status, meet an urgent need, which would be something like a national emergency, very rare to happen in El Paso County, or to address the removal of slum and blight. So if there's a designated building within our community that would be categorically slum or blighted, then we can use these funds to remove it. But typically 90% of the time, our projects are benefiting people of a low to moderate income status within El Paso County. Okay. And one of the things you mentioned there, and I just want to be as clear as possible about this, talk to me about what that untethered funding means. It's maybe it sounds like people can just use it on whatever they want, and maybe that's true and maybe that's not. So can you talk a little bit about what that funding looks like?
It's not actually untethered. The county every 6 years, the county will go through what's called a consolidated plan, where they survey the El Paso County community to determine what are the goals of the CDBG program. It keeps it fluid. It keeps it sort of ambiguous in terms of the applicability of what these 10 goals are. And just to go over them really quickly, we have 3 different categories for that: housing, homelessness and special needs addressing, as well as community development needs that are occurring within the community. So if you're addressing housing within the community, there's applicability there. The funding would specifically go to improve access to transportation. It could rehabilitate pre-existing housing inventory. And we also utilize it to increase our fair housing education throughout the county. And we do this in a number of ways. Specifically, we'll go out to the community specific to the commissioners' districts, and we will do community outreach events to kind of highlight what is housing within the community, as well as what the Community Development Block Grant has done out in those communities. In addition to that, we want to ensure that homelessness is brief and non-recurring. So our homelessness category is one that we utilize often through the use of CDBG funds. In addition to that, we want to improve the community development. In the CDBG acronym, community and development are the 2 most important parts of it. So if we can increase infrastructure projects, public facility projects that help improve our neighborhoods and help make the community a better, safer place, that's where these untethered funds can really be applied. We do have all sorts of caveats that come with federal grant writing, but at the same time, my professional role is to really help anybody who doesn't have this background experience with federal grant writing. So in that degree, it's we offer an entry level for any type of nonprofit, micro enterprise, municipality, any faith-based organization, or any institution of higher learning that doesn't have this specificity in federal grant writing. We really allow for somebody to come in with very little experience that maybe wants to develop their program a little bit better.
Awesome. All right. So I think it's pretty clear, at least at this point to me, how you're involved with CDBG and what that looks like. Ross, people may be wondering right now, wait, how is this guy from Parks involved with CDBG? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, over the past 10 years, County Parks has applied for grants and received grants in the tune of about $1.2 million that has helped us improve facilities that are located in these lower to moderate income areas. So we started earlier on in the program, we concentrated on the El Paso County Fair and Event Center. We did a lot of ADA accessibility improvements there, from grandstand improvements to sidewalks, just really helping to turn that facility a little bit more into a easily accessible, well-rounded facility. In more recent years, our attention has turned to Whitefield Community Park and the Cruz Gulch Regional Trail, which runs through Whitefield Community Park, and through that, we're on our fourth or fifth stage now of grant funding that has allowed us to greatly improve the playgrounds there, improve the restroom facilities, build picnic pavilions, resurface basketball courts, build pickleball courts, and just really helped to bring a sense of pride back to Whitefield. It's always such a beautiful little gem of a community park. But it was hard with all of our parks and all of our trails to be able to work Whitefield into that financial rotation into the capital improvement projects. But because Whitefield was located in a low to moderate income area, we saw the CDBG program as a great opportunity to finally shower that park with love and improvements, and they have been greatly received. Currently, we are working on paving almost 2,200 feet of the Cruz Gulch Regional Trail, which is also helping to increase the ADA accessibility. It also, this next phase especially, will help to aid in connectivity to the surrounding neighborhoods too, through street crossings and such. Mm-hmm. Without the CDBG program, the county fairgrounds and Whitefield Community Park and the Cruz Gulch Regional Trail would not be what they are today. Yeah. And we really enjoy that partnership that we've had with Luke and the program, and knowing that when we look at the master plan for Whitefield Community Park and see that we've checked off so many goals, that just makes that partnership incredibly strong.
Yeah. That's awesome. That sounds really great. I've actually never made it out to Whitefield Community Park, but the way you talked about it sounds pretty nice. I'll have to check that out.
Definitely get out there.
So one of the things I think is interesting, and people I think could reasonably may not understand. I certainly didn't understand it before coming in and talking to you guys. Is that these CDBG grants, the county itself can apply and receive them, just as in the case for a Whitefield Community Park. Luke, can you talk about sort of, I guess, maybe how that works and maybe how that's okay, right? Like speaking plainly,
absolutely.
It's like, what does that look like? But then not just for this project specifically, but also maybe talk to us about some other projects that exist and how they're able to receive that funding.
No, these are great questions. And we really have 5 different funding categories that you're able to apply within the CDBG. And the first one is public service, which is our most competitive. It's really it's determined public service is going to be for those projects that nonprofits specifically have that maybe they don't have enough funding for. It could be a Meals on Wheels program. TLC up in Monument, they're also known as Tri-Lakes Cares. They do a utility and rent assistance program that is free to anybody within the county that can hear my voice and you have any sort of rental utility assistance needs. And that's a program that we've been funding since 2020. The way that really municipalities and specifically the county is able to do this cross collaboration with interdepartmental cross collaboration is what you want to call it, is we can see these these gaps in funding that the county has, and we can strike up what we would consider an agreement internally to just utilize these funds. But it's not simply limited to what is the county departments, but we can go to any of the 7 municipalities that are throughout El Paso County and apply the same kind of model. And what Ross described earlier with how we approached the El Paso County Fairs project is we often will do it in multiple phases. And when revenue sources are limited, and we get about $1.1 million in our grant allotment each year, when those types of funds are limited, the way that we can work around that is that, as Ross is describing, we can break it up into incremental phases. And over the long term, we can provide funding to a project that might ultimately be infeasible without these funds. And Widefield Park is such a great example because we started giving them funding in 2017 and again in 2019 and again in 2023 to just make sure that this park is really up to what everyone's expectations are and to make it the gem that Ross describes that it is. But some other funding categories. So I talked about the 5 different funding categories and kind of got a little off topic. But the 5 different categories for funding that we have are public service, public facility and infrastructure, housing, and economic development activities. And public service, again, is our most competitive category. We have the most limited amount of funds for that category with the most amount of competition. Again, this would be a nonprofit that maybe is looking to enhance their program a little bit, provide some additional funding to some additional low to moderate income clientele. Our public infrastructure projects are going to be what Ross has described, which are those public community parks, community centers. We do a lot of projects for infrastructure specific to sidewalk work because it's very easy for us to do that kind of work because it helps people of a presumed benefit status, people who have disabilities, elderlies, these type of people that would ultimately be considered of a low to moderate income status. We can ultimately help them automatically with infrastructure sidewalk projects that benefit them. Economic development, that's going to be specific to creating low to moderate income jobs. So we can work with small business owners, specifically those micro enterprises that would like to perform or to provide low to moderate income workers with some like a leg up in terms of their workforce training. We can provide funding to them to provide those clientele with funding. And then our most popular category outside of public service is going to be housing. And El Paso County is really running into an issue where not only are we a veteran-heavy county, but we're aging in place a lot faster than all these surrounding counties around us. So one of the projects that or programs that we work with is Brothers Redevelopment Home Rehabilitation Program. And Brothers Redevelopment will actually go into individuals' homes that are eligible within El Paso County. These are people who are elderly, disabled, have some sort of presumed benefit again, and they'll provide free of charge to them renovations to their home to allow them to live into place. So all these types of activities these 5 different categories, they allow us a sort of ambiguity in application of what is the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant. And we try to take, as my director likes to point out, a holistic approach where we try to approach all these project types with a perspective of that we can fund a little bit, but when it comes to providing funding for everybody, we really do have to take an analytical approach to determine which projects are most viable within our block grant allocation.
Mm-hmm. And this grant funding, is that federal grant funding? Does it come from the state? Where is that money coming from exactly?
This funding is actually from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is a federally funded program.
Okay, very good. So one thing I wanted to you had touched on a little bit. You mentioned that some of these projects are ongoing. The Whitefield Park has received funding on a couple different cycles. Can you talk about when the next application cycle is? What are some of the steps that organizations should take if they're interested in applying for this type of funding?
So our grant cycle opens every year at the beginning of the year. So the first week in January is when our application cycle is going to open. This year is January 3rd, which is a Friday, and it will continue for 30 days. The ending date is February 3rd, 2025. And one of the prerequisites of the CDBG program is that if you haven't applied within our grant before, it is required that you meet with me in a one-on-one basis to determine if your application is going to be viable during that application cycle. The initial meeting only takes about 20 to 30 minutes to determine where the eligibility for your program lies and what type of funding you could potentially get from us. Our funding ranges from anywhere from $25,000 per applicant to upwards of $400,000 per applicant. It just really depends on the type of project and the competitiveness of the category that you're applying within. If we get less applicants in one category, the chances are you'll get more funding. But again, our CDBG is incredibly competitive every single year. We get on average about 20 to 30 applicants. We're only able to fund 10 applications per year.
Sorry, this is just a little off. But
Please.
You've had a really good relationship with City of Fountain.
Yeah, so City of Fountain is another good example of infrastructure projects that we've done. We've done pretty much all of their thoroughfares, their sidewalks down there. Same with the town of Monument. If you happen to be walking around the town of Monument in their downtown area, all of the ADA sidewalks up there, all of their thoroughfares have been redone through the Community Development Block Grant. And we run into this quite often in El Paso County where municipalities it's not within their budget to do these types of projects, but with the funding from the Community Development Block Grant, we're able to kind of fill the gap of where those deficiencies are.
Awesome. Yeah. So earlier you had mentioned that you guys perform community outreach to help people sort of understand what the CDBG is and information about that. Are there any upcoming events that you can share about that are going to be here in the near future?
We unfortunately, we just missed one, and it was out in Callahan about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But we do have one coming up in January with the city of Colorado Springs. We haven't determined a location for that, but the thing worth pointing out is the Colorado Springs has its own entitlement as well. Theirs is about 5 times what ours is. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to be working with them collaboratively in January to kind of talk to all of the interested parties about how anybody can apply within either grant and how you can apply within both grants and apply and get funding from both the El Paso County and the Colorado Springs CDBG program.
Awesome. And so if people are interested in that event or any events in the near future, how can they find out about those? Where should they be looking to get that info?
It's really easy to Google EPC CDBG. That is the best way to get to our website. But the most drawn out way to do that is admin.elpasoco.com/economic-development/community-initiatives/CDBG. And that'll get to our website to let you know of anything that's coming down the pipe in terms of community outreach, even our application, and who to contact in regards to either of those things.
Let me tell you, reading off long websites makes for great audio, so thank you for that. No, it's okay. I'll be sure to include, for those of you listening, I'll be sure to include the link in the show notes so you can have easy access to that. All you have to do is tap or click on that, and it'll take you to the website, but I'll make sure that gets in there. So before we close out the conversation, I just wanted to ask if there's anything else that either of you would like to add that you think would be important for listeners to know about. Luke, let's start with you on that one.
If you're thinking about applying within our grant cycle in 2025, I actively encourage you to get a hold of me now. My name is my email, which is lukeHauser@elpasoco.com, or you can call me at 719-520-6249. Again, our application is extremely competitive. The process lasts about 10 months. So we ask that when you apply in January that you expect to receive funds somewhere between September and October. And we really do give a preference to projects that we consider shovel ready, which are projects that once after the 10-month cycle completes and we're able to give you that funding, that your project will be ready to start immediately. Again, 10 months is a long time to wait, but it's pretty standard for what is the CDBG overview. But yeah, before you apply, please get a hold of me. We'll determine viability within our grant cycle, and we'll go from there.
Great. And then to that point, I'll make sure we get your phone number and email address in the show notes as
Thank
well,
you.
so people don't have to remember that either. Then Ross, how about you? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would just definitely like to invite the public, if they ever do want to see where the CDBG grant money goes, is to, when you're at the county fair this coming July, look at the sidewalk under you, look at the playground, look at the grandstands, and you're going to see projects that were funded by CDBG grants. When you're at Whitefield, you can look anywhere and see everything. You're on the Cruise Gulch Trail, especially in the southern part of the Whitefield Park. You're going to be on brand new concrete that was funded by this wonderful program. As we speak, the Fountain Creek Nature Center in Fountain is getting a brand new set of ADA accessible entry ramps and other features to help with some drainage issues that we've had there. And those will be completed by December. And we always, of course, invite the public to go to our wonderful nature centers and check them out. But in this case, as you're walking into the nature center, you will be walking on a CDBG project. And finally, in 2025, we'll be completing the Cruise Gulch Regional Trail to Harvard Street, from Quebec to Harvard Streets. And that last section will really help to increase neighborhood connectivity and just make the trail much more enjoyable. So we definitely invite the public to go out and see where these projects have actually where they've come to fruition.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, Luke and Ross. I appreciate you guys taking the time today and for sharing all this information to help enlighten people on what exactly the CDBG is and how it can benefit them. So thank you for taking the time.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
If you are interested in listening to additional episodes of Beyond the Dais, be sure to look for us on Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.